Okay, hello to anyone who is just arriving here. Welcome, welcome in on this April 4th, this Friday. This is the first Friday of April, and we now are meeting twice a month. I've had several women reach out and ask if I could offer more options for showing up. So I always do it on a Friday, and it's the first and third Fridays for women. And I just last month did my first gathering for men, and that's always the last Friday of the month. And so it's very exciting to offer this to other people who like men as well as women. And I had men reaching out saying, well, why aren't you offering this to us? And I was like, you're right. Why am I not? So here I am offering this space to both women and men, and excited to do so and talk to, I think, men, as I've sat with couples and sat with men in my one-on-one containers in my practice, my therapeutic practice. It's been very beautiful to see their desire to talk about their own lived experience and what worked and what didn't, and what they'd like to shift, and their perception of what they saw growing up, whether it was through what was modeled by their parents, or leaders or teachers or friends, whatever. And so that's been really beautiful to have the opportunity to speak to both men and women about these things, because then it opens us up to becoming a little softer and a little more open to life. So if you've been here before, and this is quite normal, I'm going to ask you if you're safe in a safe space to just go ahead and close your eyes and take just 2 or 3 deep breaths. No need to change your breathing, just in through your nose and out through your mouth or your nose, whatever feels right for you. Just dropping in to this space and being here now, just with your breath. You can't breathe in the past or the future. Remember that. So if you're ever feeling off and want to come back to center, back to presence, being here in the now, just be aware of your breathing, and it brings you right back. It's a really useful tool. Okay, so now if you feel a little more present, if you would be willing to share in the chat, I always ask people to check in. And when I say that, checking in with what's moving through them right now. So it's, instead of like, I am anxious or I am scared, it's there is, just acknowledging what's here and what comes and goes. And that is our thoughts and our emotions. They come and they go. They never come to stay. If you've ever paid attention to that, sometimes it feels like they do. But I would say right now, for me, there is trust and there is curiosity. That's what's moving through me right now. And can you see how that's always shifting? I think earlier, as I was thinking about doing this, I would have said maybe there was a little, I don't want to call it anxiety, because anxiety and excitement have a similar feel. I used to think, oh, that's anxiety. And now, as I'm getting more tuned in to what I'm actually feeling, it's like, no, I'm actually excited to show up here. I love this. I love being in presence with people who are excited to learn and grow and know more about themselves and how they function, and how life can be actually really beautiful, and how you can feel more liberated. Okay, Brooke says there's openness and awareness. Lovely. Isabel, there is excitement and gratitude. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I am also going to ask you to, while we're present here, think about the intention you might have for being here in this space. Your why. Why are you here? What is it that you desire right now? Sometimes we show up in spaces because we want to release something. We want to receive maybe some deeper lessons, a greater understanding, a deeper understanding, or maybe that something is revealed to you. Because I think what I want to speak to today, I never really know. Like, I'm not one Those of you that know me pretty well, I used to think that I had all the answers and I was so certain I could control things. And the illusion of the idea that I could actually control things, I laugh at it now, but it created a lot of suffering in my life because I really did believe that as my children were little and I could kind of shape them and mold them into like, this is how to live life. I've come to understand that the only thing that I do know is that I don't know. So to think that I'm going to come here with this great agenda of what I'm going to say, it actually takes away some of the magic that wants to arrive if I'm open to receive what is being given. Given from what? From the spirit, from God, from my higher self, from all that is, from source. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's real. And when we are soft and open to receive, it's a feminine energy receiving, right? It's soft. And when I'm able to be an instrument of that softness, I'm able to maybe bring something into this space that could resonate with you. So I love to share a bit of my story because in my travels and in my this journey called life, I've come to understand that whenever someone shares their story, it's not just personal, it's collective. That we are beings that are archetypal. Things resonate with us, even if it was someone else's story. If you've been in this space and you've witnessed other people sharing their experience with their life, things that they came to believe about themselves before they knew better, doesn't it almost always resonate with you on some level? Like, oh, I feel that because it's archetypal, it's collective as well. And so to share a space like this becomes really potent and powerful if we allow it to reveal to us, which all of life is doing all the time, our wholeness, to reveal it. Everything is happening, all the experiences, all the circumstances of our life are actually a gift and an ally to us in revealing to us our wholeness. So, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I've made it some notes because I started to write some things that were coming in before everyone else came here. So, and I can only speak from my own lived experience. So I'm not going to say that, oh, this way is the right way. Like I said, I'm very uncertain of what I used to be so certain of, but that leaves me very open to receive, to be a receiver, almost like a radio signal. Like when you hear truth, I guess this is a question I would love to ask. And if you want to open up in the chat your thoughts on this, when you hear truth, do you just hear it or see it if you're reading it or you're experiencing it? Is it something that you are like, oh, I've read that, and isn't it something more that you feel because it resonates like a vibration of truth? I'm curious how that lands for you because as I've sat and thought about what feels true or whole or right, or I don't even want to call it good, bad, right, or wrong. It feels aligned, like ding, like harmonious in my soul. And that has become a really beautiful way for me to discern what truth feels like for me. And it can be in any setting. I used to think that it could only happen in certain spiritual sacred spaces. And then as I started to experience that feeling of feeling the spirit, feeling truth, feeling something that resonates, that really just speaks and aligns with my soul, then I am like, oh my goodness, that I want more of that. I want to feel that. I want to be aligned with something like that more and more. And that becomes very beautiful. And I have come to realize that there are as many paths as there are people. We're all having our own experience here as souls having a human experience. Okay. Um, Brooke says, truth feels familiar and like a remembrance. Okay, I love that. A remembrance. Ariana says it feels calming and clear. Emily says, I love the idea of harmonic oscillation when certain things vibrate at the frequency that belong or aligns to it, that belongs or aligns to it. Thank you. Yes, thanks for sharing, all of you. I love that. Um, so when we think about as many paths as there are people, and we learn more about how life is working as we gain wisdom, right? Hopefully, there's a saying that Ram Dass says. He was talking to his guru, one of his gurus, and he asked the question, "What is my problem?" And the guru said, how did he say it? I don't want to get this wrong. I think I wrote it down. Okay. He said, "What is my problem?" And the guru answered, "You've been enrolled in a school, and yet you refuse to take the curriculum." So if we can think of this life, all of our paths that we're on and experiencing here, if life is our curriculum, our humanness, our soul being here in this human instrument, right? To experience all of our humanness, we're here to learn something and trust ourselves, what we're feeling here about truth, what resonates, what feels aligned can be our guide if we'll trust ourselves. And can we trust ourselves to be human enough to make mistakes and go in that direction and then feel a discernment about that thing that we could say, oh, that was a mistake, but was it really a mistake if it taught us how to be more aligned with our wholeness? Do you see what I'm saying here? It kind of goes to, it speaks to this idea that can we really make a mistake in this life if we believe that life isn't a test, but actually that life is a curriculum for us to learn how to stay aligned with what feels true, what feels right. Um, and this is also something I want to speak to. If we are at war with in here, with what's going on in here, in our humanity, beating ourselves up for making mistakes or having made too many mistakes, if we're at war or feeling shame, self-doubt, regret, all of the things that are very human, if we can allow those to just be and we can sit with that and bring more peace, then there won't be such a war outside in our reality. Does that make sense? So I want to speak to that a little bit about perception. So if there is a war going on in here, there will be suffering out here. But the good news is when we become aware of what is happening in here, in our subconscious that is guiding 95% of all of our beliefs and our reactions and our thoughts all day long, if we can say, wait a minute, how does that make me feel? How am I feeling right now? I'm out of alignment. I'm not being present. I am stuck in thinking about my past and my future. Therefore, there's war, there's suffering if we're living in those two states of being. When we can shift our awareness, like, oh, I see, that's my inner dialogue, but is it true? And we can start questioning it. Then we start to shift our outer experience because in here becomes more at peace. So this idea that how can I say this properly? This idea of heaven and hell, okay? We know now that time is relative. This experience that we're having as humans, this human experience is, we are experiencing time as the illusion of time and space being linear and not just always happening right now. And it kind of is, it blows our mind. I remember when I first heard this, I'm like, oh, I need to bend my brain around that because it doesn't make sense because it's all we've ever known. But we know through quantum physics, which is the newer physics than Newtonian physics, and even actually Einstein was saying this, the time is relative. So everything is just happening right now. And I thought of this morning as I was sitting here. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this about time, but if time is all happening right now, there's just different layers or dimensions of time. And I would even say generations, generations, like when we think of our ancestors and generations to come and generations that have been, they're really living in a different layer or generation, like a delineation of time. That's interesting. So when we are doing this inner work and we're being more aware and more loving of ourselves and our humanity, Um, we're doing that here right in the now, which our generational ancestors coming and going in all the directions are, it sends a ripple effect out. It changes the energy because everything is energy, and it does actually heal them. That's what ancestral healing at its core is, which is so beautiful when you think about it. I don't know if any of you have had experiences with healing something deep that was wounded within you, like really tending to yourself in a new way, and then having some sort of insight or impression or feeling that it wasn't just you, it was actually helping heal your mom, your grandpa, your someone who's passed, or even someone who's living right now, because it affects everything as it is right now. So when we are accepting and embracing all of our humanness, yes, especially the parts that we judge as not obedient or worthy enough, and we begin to accept all of the versions of us, can you see how each of those discarded, disconnected pieces or versions of us that are living right now, even the version of us that was when she was 6 years old, she's just in a different timeline right now. We actually can go to that version and accept her and be like, of course you came to believe that. This is what was going on. That was your lived experience. And that's the curriculum. So as you turn towards that version of you that only ever wanted to be seen because she was scared and felt lonely and kind of dismissed by parents that were really busy and didn't have all the tools necessary to show up. So when we are feeling vulnerable or jealous or angry or shameful, we can hold those pieces of us and let them soften because they're feeling the compassion and the attention that they always wanted and deserved. And now you're giving that to them, those versions, and they come back to the frequency of your wholeness. So the version of us that's whole, she already exists in a different dimension of time. And a lot of times we think of like, well, when I become this or when I can do enough deep inner work or whatever, but actually think about it, it's actually backwards because if our wholeness exists right now at a frequency that is not stuck in the heaviness of our humanity by judging any part of us, then she's there waiting for us to arrive to her frequency. We think that we're waiting to become that like in some future time, and she's here right now saying, you have access to me anytime you want. What is your choice? When I think of it in those terms, that is so beautiful. Okay, Jill says, yes, we heal ourselves and it transcends to others. Thank you. Yes. Thank you for this. I'm excited to ponder on this and give more grace to loved ones in all their times and places. Yes. Thank you for saying that. Because when we give compassion here, guess what? It's energetic. Can you see how it works? It's the energy of abundance. No more lack. I'm not lacking anything when I can give compassion, the courage to give compassion to all the versions of me. It's energetic. And when I've given it here, then I can give it to others. And maybe I'm not even aware that I'm giving it to others. But when it's given here, it's so naturally given to others because then we're like, oh, why would I ever judge? When we stop judging us, we stop judging others. I hope you can does anyone understand that and feel that? And that is liberation. So when I think of liberation, I think of like someone saying, "Oh, freedom and liberation." And I think that if people say that and they're like, "Yeah, freedom and liberation," I can sense sometimes when someone says that, they're just words. But as I think back on my life and as I sit with certain people that have been willing to have the courage and compassion to hold themselves, and it changes them, it liberates them literally, energetically, to be aligned more with truth, the truth of, and the wholeness that they are divine and that they are never separate from divinity, that truth in and of itself starts to set them free. And the prison that they were in before, and I'm speaking of my own experience as well as people, my clients and groups of people that I've sat with as they've shared their experience with this, that the prison of, and I'm curious what your prison has felt like. Suffering for me, if I could say honestly, feeling like I'm suffering, like I'm a victim, like I'm powerless. I don't have a choice. That life is happening to me, and all of my circumstances are just um, random and don't have any meaning in my life, and that I'm just kind of meant to suffer and muddle through, or just eke my way through so I can just get through it. I think, wait a minute, I lived in that place, kind of sleepwalking and not being aware of my own power to choose my thoughts and forgive myself and the past versions of me that didn't know better than to stay in places I shouldn't have stayed for so long, or whatever it is. We all have our reasons. And it's beautiful when we think about it, because those experiences that felt like a prison actually served such a beautiful purpose. Because now, as I come to the other side of like the contrast of the prison that I felt like I was in, suddenly my liberation feels transcendent. It feels like more expansive because I experienced like the depth of the contraction of it. Does that make sense? So it's easy for people to talk about liberation, but when I feel someone who has been literally in a prison of their own making, believing that they are a victim to life instead of being a co-creator with their lived experience, or that the experiences that they're having are absolutely perfectly orchestrated to help them arrive at freedom and experience the liberation. You can feel that. It's energetic. It's like, oh, I will never go back to suffering like that again, because I know how sweet liberation feels, and I'm not willing to allow actually it's perception, because all the circumstances, everything that's happening in our reality is always guiding us, revealing our wholeness back to us. It's a mirror, it's neutral. So, like I said, if there's a war here, the mirror is going to show us, the mirror of life, everything that we're seeing, instead of being like, why is this happening? Why does this keep happening? It's like, oh, what must I still believe about myself that's triggering my reality to trigger me to say, pay attention, what's going on in here that keeps showing up out here? If there's peace here, there will be peace out here. Okay. Um, there's a saying by a great Chinese sage. His name was Sing Sing Ming. But the great way, meaning life, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. What do you think this means? Thank you, Brooke. I saw your message. Um, when I say that, the great way or life is not difficult for those who have no preferences. This is kind of a deeper thing to ponder, because what it means at its essence, what it's trying to say here is that as humans, we are creatures of comfort. We cling to the things that feel comfortable and things that we love to feel and be with, and the comfortability of the things that we feel like we can control. That when life is going our way, we love that. But when life is not going our way, we resist the things that we don't love, the things that we hate. We want to resist that. Those are the things that we avoid. But can you see how we are having preferences about what we love and what we don't love? And that alone creates our very own suffering, because all day long we're labeling things as good, bad, right, or wrong. That this should be happening so I can feel good here on the inside. That life needs to be happening a certain way. These people need to be acting a certain way for me to feel safe and okay. Can you see how it's backwards? That when we stop labeling things as good, bad, right, or wrong, but it's all just part of our lived experience and we can accept it all just as it is, then everything starts to shift because we're not clinging and we're not resisting. We're just being and allowing others to be, having their own experience, having their own path. And we are not here judging it as good, bad, right, or wrong because we aren't judging ourselves as good, bad, right, or wrong anymore. Okay, so we are actually creating our own heaven or hell in our lived experience, our own heaven and hell. Like, let's go there. Don't maybe exist in some future time. If there isn't a future, if everything's right now, does that mean that our experience of life can be like a heaven or hell through our state of mind, our perception? So there's a story I'm going to share with you about a samurai and a monk. And the samurai came to this sage monk and he said, I want you to tell me the truth about heaven and hell. And the monk just sat there for a minute watching the samurai and all of his, samurais were trained to be fierce warriors and be so brave and courageous. So he looked at the samurai and he said, you are coming to me and asking about heaven and hell? How pitiful. Who do you think you are? You come here and you stink and you're smelly and you think you're great or whatever, all these things. And he starts insulting the samurai. And the samurai is so enraged because he feels disrespected and he pulls out his sword to cut the monk's head off. And the monk stops him and says, that's hell. And the samurai stopped and started laughing because he realized, oh my goodness, that monk just taught me the lesson I was asking and I didn't realize it. So then the samurai put his sword back in and he knelt down in front of the monk and he said, thank you for teaching me that lesson. And the monk immediately said, and that is heaven. So I love that story because can you see how this samurai was taught this really important lesson in such a simple way? And it really was what the monk was showing him is your state of being that's going on in here that you allowed me to trigger you and you responded to these triggers in a certain way. And you created heaven and hell through your experience of what I was saying to you. It's very powerful. Think about this story and how often we get triggered by life, by all the things that are happening out here. And yet we will deem them good, bad, right, or wrong, depending on our perception and what's going on in here. So it's revealing our truth to be able to be interactive with life and be curious. I think just being curious and not clinging to like, oh, it should be this way, but to just observe and be like, wow, I can see how much that's triggering me. What must I believe? What world identity am I living in that feels triggering for me? I'm still not free if it's still triggering anger, jealousy, resentment, grief, sadness, like all the things that we live in thinking we are that, where there is that because we're humans experiencing this. Okay, so I've spoken enough. I've talked too long. I wanted to be here to support anyone who has any questions about any of this, or if you are here to receive support for anything that's moving through you right now. I happen to know that right now in the collective, there is a lot going on. I don't know if you are a believer in astrology and planets, planetary things that are happening in energetically. And I didn't used to believe in stuff like that, but now more and more it's got my attention because as I sit with people, there's a similar theme. So there's a collective energy right now with a lot of the eclipse portals that have closed and the energy that's moving through with all the planets lining up in weird like celestial happenings and occurrences that actually do affect us. and our energy. So things have felt a little bit heavy and sticky. That's what I'm going to say. That if you are feeling that more than normal, you are not alone. That is what is moving through the collective right now. And I am here to say, I have been feeling it too. So 2 weeks ago when we met, um, if you weren't here, I shared some of what I had been feeling since I've moved back to America. And I was like, what is going on? And then as I started to sit with people and started to talk to friends who are really good and know a lot about astrology and what is happening in our planetary systems and how that does affect us, I'm like, oh, okay. And you know what? I used to be really closed off to the idea that that could affect us and affect our energy. And now I really like that I'm more open to it because it makes me realize that there isn't just one way to be, that there can be many ways and many lenses to view something and actually feel something. So as I sit with that, I'm like, yeah, I've noticed that with other people and I noticed that on myself. So that I love the part of me that wants to be open and curious because then I'm revealing more of myself to myself. I feel like it brings me closer to my wholeness when I'm more open and not so closed off with so many walls. Okay, so if anyone feels like they would like to have any support for something that feels challenging or something that feels like a pattern in their life or a roadblock, something that has happened and they don't have clarity on it and they would like to have more clarity, anything like that, I am here to support you. I would love to speak to that. Okay. Would love to speak to that. Okay.
No. Yeah. And then will you watch it twice? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna keep listening.
Jill, I don't know if you're Jill. I don't know if you're there's feedback here.
There's feedback here.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe Jill wanted some support, but maybe she accidentally hit the mute button. But okay. So, no, that's okay. Um, is there anyone here that has any other thoughts about what I was speaking to, how that feels for you when I talk about being open or liberation and prison? Is there any Are there any of you that have felt, and whether you're here now or whether you're watching this later, this recording, I'm curious what has felt maybe like a prison for you? If I share a bit of my story about how my prison, like looking back, I will often say to people, I spent a very, very many years of my life feeling very numb, kind of robotic, and going through the motions of my life. And I can see now that it created suffering because I didn't know another way. I didn't know what it would feel like to be more open to the idea that I couldn't make a mistake, that everything that was happening was actually really, really helpful in bringing me to out of numbness and out of sleepwalking in my life by becoming more aware of the dynamics of my perception and healing and becoming more aligned with my wholeness, the truth of my wholeness and who I be. So having lived that, the freedom has become so much sweeter after kind of living in that prison. I'm curious if anyone else has had an experience in their lives where they're willing to share either in the chat or even if you don't want to put your camera on and you just want to speak, there's that too. But just the idea that living with the lens, so I didn't realize this. And when I first heard this, it kind of was like a dagger in my heart. I'm not going to lie, because maybe it was just because I wasn't ready to be radically self-responsible. But whenever we are suffering, it's because we are believing a lie, something that we came to believe about ourselves that isn't true, but it's before we knew better than to question, is that true? And it keeps us stuck in victimhood. Like, well, this happened, so therefore I am this. I am less than. I am powerless. I'm not lovable. I am a mistake, or I make too many mistakes, or I'm not safe to be me. Or um, what's another one? Is I sat with a client recently. Um, it wasn't like I'm not worthy. It's like ah, because it was so poignant, and I was like, oh my goodness, yes, I can understand that. And her lived experience had made her think, oh, she doesn't matter. I don't matter. I don't matter. And that was the identity that she had come to believe about herself in her life. And it was showing up in all of her life as an adult when she would try to speak her truth, and she would like play small because she was like, well, I don't matter. No one really wants to hear what I have to say. And it kept her playing small. It kept her kind of hiding. And so she was able to sit with the version of her that came to believe that she didn't matter and start to question it. Is it true that I don't matter? I am here, born, living, breathing miracle. And all of my life has mattered because I've interacted with people, I've had children, I've learned beautiful truths. And who am I to believe that I don't matter just because that thing happened with a teacher when I was younger and I came to believe that I don't matter because they said that? Is it really true that I don't matter? That I shouldn't take up space here in this life? And as she started to overcome that belief and realize, wait a minute, that's not true. I do matter. I am here and I have something to say, and it will resonate with someone. It will resonate with someone. And she has been able to shift her business, the way she shows up in her business with authenticity, because now the things she's teaching about like coming home to yourself and things really actually the energy behind her words matches her words. She's not just speaking it from a place of like inauthenticity. Now she's like, no, I do matter. I do know how to show up for myself because I've held those versions of me and they have been welcome to come back to their wholeness and be here with me in my humanity. So um, I love that. I love being able to see people wake up to the fact that they do matter and the things that they came to believe when they were younger were never true, that they were something less than, that they were lacking in any way. Um, and that's why I am here. That's why I do the work that I do, because when I see that subtle shift in myself and in the people that I work with, there it's exhilarating. I don't know, because it's not something that I'm giving them. It's something that they're revealing in themselves. They're revealing more of their divinity and their wholeness. And that I don't think there's anything more beautiful than that, because how that translates into when people take the things that I work with them on and they actually stop being a concept in their mind, but they start dropping into their body because they see the value of what is being taught, the value of the resource of having compassion towards themselves and forgiving the versions of themselves that came to believe that before they knew better. Then they see the value of it like, oh, this actually does change everything energetically. It's energy. It's compassion. Compassion for ourselves changes the energy of who we be because it's releasing what no longer serves us and allowing space for more compassion to come in. More compassion, not just for us, but for everything and everyone. All of life becomes softer because we gave it here first. So that is the crux, really, the foundation of everything that I teach and do is compassion, self-compassion, having the courage to have compassion for ourselves. And the energy that that brings to us um, just flows into everything in our lives. Okay, so this is going to be a short one this week. I don't want to keep you guys longer, and I don't want to keep anyone longer that is watching this. But if no one has anything that they would like help with or any situation now, if you ever wanted to reach out to me privately and before we meet here and ask a question or state your problem, then I can anonymously speak to it and see if that's helpful for not just you, but everyone else here in this container when they show up, whether they're watching it live or at home later, wherever they be. Um, so that's also a thing that you can do is ask a question beforehand and I can speak to it anonymously. Um, okay. I just want to say thank you for being here. Just this idea, just circling back around really quick. The idea that heaven and hell right now for us in this context are states of being of our mind when we are suffering and it feels kind of like a prison or a hell. Get more curious. What is the state of my inner world that's creating things that feel kind of hellish or suffering? If I can tend with so much courage and compassion to my inner world and what's going on, what does that do? What does that bring? It brings more peace. It brings more openness, more ability to trust that life is always wanting to reveal more of my wholeness, more of my truth. And when I'm standing in my truth, I'm resonating with the energy and the frequency of truth, which is my wholeness, which is love. So that's why I'm here. That's why I love to do this. And I'm curious what you think about heaven and hell, like the states of being, like when we're living in the past, thinking about things we should have done or shouldn't have done, we are creating depression. We're living in the past in our thoughts. That's a state of being. And then when we are letting our painful past inform our fearful future, we're living in anxiety. And that's its own state of being. That's a different kind of suffering. But can you see how both of these states of being are never in the now moment? They're in other places in our mind. We can only be here right now as we breathe and drop into our wholeness and be like, oh, I'm human. I'm having this experience. And yes, it feels heavy, but I trust myself to know how to have the courage and compassion to show up and stay. I'm going to be the one who stays. I'm going to stay right here. I'm going to feel this and I'm going to be okay because I trust myself. I'm open. I'm soft. I'm not going to avoid or resist anymore the things that feel icky because I trust myself to be safe to tend to myself in a new way. So, okay, that is my hope for each of you, that you can take these little ideas and contemplate them. Breathe. Just sit and breathe for some moments at sometimes in your day. There's always enough time to just take a few deep breaths and ponder what you have felt here when I've said certain things. Did you feel anything move, anything resonate, anything that felt like, oh, yeah, I want to do that. I want to have the courage and compassion, or I do that. I'm doing that. Like, be your best cheerleader, celebrate your wins, notice how you show up for yourself. That's beautiful. But I want to say thank you for being here. And if you want to reach out to me privately, I would love to hear from you if you want support in any way. And also that I will be offering this space the first and the third Fridays of every month. And on the fourth Friday, I will be offering support for men. That's a new thing for me, and I'm excited to see how that continues to open up. Thank you for being here. I love and believe in you. Ciao.